Hello, I'm Paulo Rocco, and you're listening to Reprint, brought to you by the Temple News. Your in-depth look into the stories you need to know about. It's tradition around here at the Temple News for graduating seniors on staff to write a senior essay about their time here at Temple or a big accomplishment they've had. So I bring some of those staff members on to talk about their essay and what's next for them. But first, a word from our sponsor. Graduating soon, want to live next to some of the best bars and restaurants in Philly? At Cooper Flats in Fishtown, you can get a fully amenitized building, an ultra-efficient one-bedroom apartment for under $1,500. It's one of the top-rated energy-efficient buildings in America. Schedule your tour at www.cooperflatsphl.com. That is www.cooperflatsphl.com and learn about their special offers. Hi, so you probably recognize my face and my voice because I was in the intro of this video in different clothing, but I was still me. And if you've been watching the podcast for the past 2 years, then you probably recognize me too. But this is the first time I'm doing it like this, and first time I probably really introduced myself for real. So, um, yeah, I'm Paulo Rocco. I'm a senior journalism major from Rockville, Maryland, and I'm the podcast editor for the Temple News. I also happen to be the general manager for WHIP Radio here on campus. Um, and I'm going to talk about my senior essay. There's not really anybody to interview me about it, but I'm going to talk about it. So I decided to write about my friends and kind of the process of how I came to meet them and become friends with them. And it kind of starts with me talking about how I grew up really shy. I'd always, cling to my parents' legs at functions when I was very young, and I kept a really tight group in high school. So it was kind of like a big risk for me to take to come to Philly and like pursue a career in something that's like really competitive as journalism is. And yeah, I think I wanted to take a risk, and I took it, and I'm really glad I did. The way I met my friends, I I met I put out a post on Facebook, and if you find that post, please don't send it to me, because it's very cringy and I don't want to relive that. But I ended up finding another post in another Facebook group for the class of 2025, from this kid named Jim Brady. And I messaged him. They said they were looking for a fourth roommate. Um, I didn't really know much about them, especially Jim, because he never really answered his texts. And I mentioned in the essay how I kind of learned later on that that'd be a common occurrence. But I said, screw it. This is a room to stay in while I'm there, and I'll figure out the rest when I get there. And that ended up being like the best decision I could have made. Um, the guys that I lived with were really cool. Jim is so annoying, and he's that, I haven't mentioned the article again. He's that type of annoying that like you want to be mad, but you just can't help yourself from laughing. And my other roommate, Liam, went to high school with him, so they would just kind of team up. While Liam was a little more reserved than Jim, they would kind of team up to just be the most annoying duo there is. And later on, the brother of one of our friends that lived in our hall, Catherine, her brother Aiden ended up moving in with us, and that was the quad that we would end up moving into off-campus apartments together and just spend the rest of college together. And the way I met the rest of our 13-person group, it's a really big group. One morning on like that first Saturday of college, we knocked on every door in our hall and invited people to breakfast. And some people, kind of joke around in the essay, were experiencing their first hangover or just kind of slammed the door in our face. Those people that didn't do that, or that might have experienced a hangover before, came to that breakfast with us. And, those people are still in the group to this day. And ever since then, we've been attached to the hip pretty much everybody. We've had so much fun just exploring the city, exploring different bars, um, causing havoc on campus, on Beery Beach. Um, we've gotten into a lot of fights, a lot of iconic fights. But at the end of the day, we've always had a lot of fun. And the whole point of the essay is kind of, talking about how I look up to my friends and what I respect about them and their emotional strength. And, kind of some of the things that they've gone through. That they've persevered through. And yeah, I just respect them being so strong through those moments in their life. The two examples I give is one of our friends, Ange, lost her mother to a battle with cancer our freshman year. And obviously we were still early in our friendship, everybody, but we made it a point that everybody attend the funeral and that we all be there for her and her family. And then last year, you know, once we've established, like, we were really good friends, everybody, Catherine and Aiden lost their father to another battle with cancer. And their father, Rob, was just like the most incredible guy. So, that was really difficult for them. And, we make sure to surround them with as much love as possible. And I joke around with, and with the help in the essay, I write, with the help of an extra bouquet of flowers. We all pitched in to send flowers to their home, and I accidentally sent a extra bouquet of flowers, which made everything very expensive for everybody, and it was probably unwanted, I'm pretty sure, from them. Um, but yeah, we have a lot of fun in our friend group. We fight sometimes. We, hit the bottle a little too hard sometimes, but at the end of the day, we got each other's backs. And yeah, that's something I really respect about our friend group. Something I wasn't I'm looking at all my points here because, it's difficult just talking in front of a camera. Um, something that, yeah, I didn't really get to touch on in the article, just because of word count and stuff, was my experience in student media. Because that's just like another place where I've just met the most incredible people. WHIP has kind of been my main student organization throughout my time at Temple. I find out about it like within my first week at like Temple Fest, or it was I forget what the event is called. It's like a client version of Temple Fest pretty much. But um I learned that there was a radio station here, and I happened to tour the radio station after that club festival, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. So I joined the news department of the radio station as fast as I could, and I was on two shows that year. The Hoot, which is like our Temple news show, and Rational Radio, which is like our national international news show. And yeah, I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with talking in front of a mic. I fell in love with radio and podcasting. And my sophomore year, I was promoted to assistant news director and led the department with the news director, Oliver Sabo, who is like one of the best journalists I've met here at Temple. Like, he's been at he was at TUTV, at WHIP, at the Temple News, and he did incredible work for all three of those organizations. And now he's, in his home state of Virginia, working at a TV station in Richmond, producing over there, and he's killing it. Um, and I owe him a lot for getting this gig specifically. He threw my name around the newsroom, and because of that, I interviewed, and Fallon Roth, the editor in chief at the time, was really impressed and like knew I was reliable. So yeah, I got this gig, and I'm forever grateful for that too. Um, but yeah, back to WHIP. That junior year, I was promoted again to news director. And I led the department with who I heard is assistant news director Jaden George, who's one of our feature staff writers over here. And yeah, that was another incredible year working. Well, I'll get to working with Jaden, but this year, my senior year, I was promoted to general manager of WHIP. So that has just been the most incredible experience too, running the whole station, not just the news department. And man, it's gone by so fast. The days, feel really long. Well, no, really fast, I should say. I don't even know. Really long, I'll say, just filled with work. But the weeks go by so fast, which is like how much fun I'm having. I've accomplished like so much, I feel like, with WHIP, and I have the most incredible staff that has like helped me do that and do this for the station and for the university. And Jaden being one of those specifically, he's just such a wealth of knowledge. He always pulls out references from like 60s media or like evangelical preachers and stuff like that, and it's like the most incredible thing. um but yeah, talking about, just looking at my notes, like talking about the Temple News. I've been here for 2 years, and this has been like a whole new level. Like WHIP, like we put out like really fun and serious and incredible work, but the Temple News is just like it's another level. It's another standard. Like it competes with the Philadelphia Inquirer and like the other outlets we have in this city, and for good reason, because everybody here is like so talented. So yeah, I've like felt out a little out of pace when I got here. I brought this mic in right here. I got it for my birthday, and I was hooking it up by USB, just straight to my laptop at the time, running everything through Adobe Audition, and it was a real janky setup. And the first episode sounded horrible, absolutely horrible. But this podcast quickly became like my baby. Like this was my project. This is all I wanted to do week in and week out. And every week I try to do something different with the podcast to kind of elevate it and take it to the next level. Some of the big points I've hit was like creating clips for social media, and then now doing full video podcasts. Bringing as many guests as I could on as possible, and just making it a conversation that people enjoy listening to. So working here has been the most incredible thing. And like, shout out to the editor in chief, Sam, right now. He's been like the best boss, just giving me so much creative freedom with the podcast, and really trusting the vision that I take with it. And, great friend and great, person to rely on, because we're both leaders in student media, and, we can kind of bounce the ideas off of each other. Um, but oh my God, I have to also mention all the sports teams that I've worked with, the sports editors, I should say, that I worked with here at TTN, because they host the other podcast that I produce here. And man, do those weeks make my week. Like, those are the best weeks, because both teams that I worked with of editors in my time here at TTN have been like the funniest group of people ever. And they always have so much fun on the episodes. So that in turn makes it really fun for me to edit these episodes. And I'm really grateful for them for that. But yeah, I've been asking everybody in these interviews the same question at the end, and that's, what do you want people to take away from this essay? And I think what I want people to take away is to get involved. Like, that's not necessarily what I mean. What I mean is, you got to find your people when you come to college. You got to find your people, because the people that you spend your time with in college, it will make or break your experience. And I found like the most incredible people I could ever ask for here. And not everybody's path to like finding their group, finding their folks, finding their family is going to be the same. Like, I got really lucky. And I was able to meet everybody I'm friends with like in my hall. But most people don't connect with the people that are in your hall, because it's really random. Like, you don't know who's going to live there. So, put yourself out there. Say hello to people on campus. Um, join clubs. Um, explore the city. Like you don't have to be friends with only people at this university. Like there's so much opportunity in the city of Philadelphia and take advantage of that. Um, and another point I want to hit, which like it doesn't really relate to my essay, but you have to have fun. You have to have fun when you're in college, and that's not to say that you shouldn't work hard, but if all you do is make your life about upward mobility in college and make yourself a whole, make every friend you make here a LinkedIn connection. You're gonna resent your time here. If all you do is work and you have zero fun, you're gonna resent your time. Like it's not worth the extra $5,000 or whatever it may be at a job you get straight out of college because you worked a little bit harder than if you didn't. You know, you have to find a balance, and I'm really lucky to have found that balance and balance really good work, and I worked really hard, I think, and also having a lot of fun, like a lot of fun. It's okay if you miss that class to sit out on Beer Beach. It's okay if you submit a project late once in a while because you went out that night. As long as you stay afloat and you graduate and you do some extracurriculars, wow, I butchered that. That puts you at another level, then you're gonna be all right. Not everybody's path is like the same in college, so live in the present, you know, and look forward to the future and don't dwell on the past because that'll kill you. That'll kill you. So yeah, I ended my essay with a quote from Anthony Bourdain that goes, "To sit alone or with a few friends, half drunk under a full moon, you just understand how lucky you are. It's a story you can't tell. It's a story by definition you can't share. I've learned to look at those times and realize I just had a really good moment." So yeah, I'll just end it on there, and I hope people can reflect on that quote and reflect on some of the things I've had to say. And if you're interested in following along in my journey, find me on X or Twitter, whatever you call it, Pablo Rocco, ROUCO. Find me on LinkedIn, same name. On Instagram, Pablo_Rocco. And to the next podcast editor, good luck. I wish you the best. Now I speak to Editor-in-Chief Samuel O'Neill. Big one here. EIC, Editor-in-Chief. Your essay, a lot of points I want to hit on your essay, but just give people a quick summary of what it was all about.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I graduated in a week, and I've worked at the paper, Temple News, since I got here. I started freelancing for the paper. Literally, my first week of school, I reached out to the sports editor at the time, like the summer before I even got to campus, and was like already working on stuff like in August of my freshman year. So my whole college experience has been built around the paper. I don't really know like what my time at Temple would look like if it didn't involve the Temple News. I've met like my best friends here.
Yeah.
I spend like all my time in the newsroom, even when I'm not like doing work stuff. Like I get like schoolwork done here. I like just hang out with people here. So my essay was just about like my experience at the paper, like how I've like navigated being a leader, going from kind of low in the totem pole here to just like someone who provides sports commentary to like actually running the whole outlet, and kind of navigating the struggles that go with that. And yeah, kind of just like overall just reflecting on my college experience and how I dealt with certain hardships or things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You talk about some quotes that really sit with you throughout your life. Specifically talking about Zach Bryan here.
Yeah.
We're both really big Zach Bryan's fans. Tell me about the impact that not only those quotes have had on your life, but Zach Bryan and his music.
Yeah. So I'd say like the one quote I live by is by Jack Kerouac. It's one day I'll find the right words and they'll be simple. And I think that's something I think about a lot. I mean, it's in my Twitter bio. It's a quote. I guess like everyone I think in life has like that one. Maybe it's not a famous quote, but like a saying or just like kind of a mantra they think of. For some people, it's like a Bible verse or what have you. But that's like kind of my life like quote or motto, I guess. Because I think like sometimes in life I find that like people always like try to yap or talk or like think they have the answer to things when they don't. And especially in like a leadership position, it's tough because like people come to you and expect something like right away, like an answer right away. And like I just
Right.
don't know what to say sometimes. And I think like the fact that that quote is in the back of my mind just reminds me of like, it's okay to not know. And like, we're all just trying our best. And like at some point in life, like we'll figure it out, whether that be tomorrow or like when we're like 80.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a reassuring thing for me. But yeah, I guess it was kind of amplified. It was written by Jack Kerouac, but amplified by Zach Bryan. Yeah, and his song "Burn, Burn, Burn," which is like tattooed on my arm. Um, but yeah, it's one of my favorite songs of all time. And I was a Kerouac fan before I got into Zach Bryan. And when I found out that Zach Bryan was a Kerouac fan, it was kind of just like, oh, wow, like this is like all my worlds colliding.
Yeah.
So that song has meant a lot to me because Burn, Burn, Burn is from a Kerouac poem.
Mhm.
So I think just like, yeah, all that stuff combined kind of just is like things I keep in my mind, especially that quote, just like,
For sure.
one day I'll find the right words and they'll be simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, you touch on the early days of being EIC and kind of the struggles of covering Trump at the Leacore Center.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Yeah. Go more in depth into what that was like.
Yeah. So I think, well, for me, like my background, I was the assistant sports editor when I first started the
Yeah.
paper. I never really envisioned I would get like out of sports, but as I kept progressing through college and through like my reporting at the paper and various internships, I started to get really passionate about like politics and just like more community reporting. I felt as if like that stuff had a bit more of like a impact in people's like day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of like did a political reporting internship the summer of 23, and that was my first like taste of it. And I really love just like how fast paced like
Yeah.
political reporting is. So yeah, when the debate came to Philly in September, I got a credential through TTN, and I went, and it was extremely chaotic. Like
Yeah.
Matt Gaetz was there,
Yeah.
um, Gavin Newsom was there, Vivek Ramaswamy, like all these heavy hitters, and then yeah, Trump came in last minute after the debate was over. He came into the spin room and answered like 3 questions and left. But yeah,
Yeah.
like that was kind of my first like time being in that environment. But I think like it all started when, I mean, you asked about Trump and Lee, of course. I just went off on a tangent, but
That's fine.
um, but yeah, I mean, like I was what 3 weeks I think into my tenure
Right.
as EIC when the news broke that Trump was coming to campus. So that was kind of my first moment of like, wow, like people and staff are relying on me. Like our readers are going to be like relying on us for coverage because as soon as the news came out, I had our like engagement team tweet out like the Temple News will be there and like stay like tuned for updates throughout the night.
Yeah.
And like that tweet went viral. Viral, like it had like a couple hundred likes, like viral for us. And um, there was one like quote tweet that I saw, and it was like, I guess maybe an alum of the Temple News or something like that was like, I'll be following along the Temple News' coverage and you should too. I remember it. And I was like, oh my God, like we actually like we need to lock in. Like people are like
Yeah.
actually going to be reading our stuff and I'm in charge. And usually like that's something you work your way towards, right? Like the summer at the Temple News is meant to be, some layup stories, get
Right.
the new staff members like, involved, to get them a
Right.
byline, and then we'll hit the ground running when we get there in the summer. Well, I had a new features team that had never written for us before. I mean, Jaden George is an excellent writer, and I wasn't worried about, his ability to cover the event, but it was more so just like I had just hired him. Like hadn't even got to meet him in person yet. Like in terms of like onboarding him for the position.
Right. Right.
So I was a bit nervous about how it would go. And Bailey Alexander, our features editor, was still like very new to the Temple News. She hadn't even freelanced before. So they all killed it. And I think just like that week, like navigating the coverage, and I was in like Boise, Idaho for an internship. So I was like
Right.
2,000 miles away. That week kind of, I think it was good for me because it threw me into the fire of like, this is the highest of possible stakes for a story that you could like cover or like, have oversight of as EIC. So knocking that out like right away was big for me. And then after that, it was like, well, nothing we cover is going to be bigger than that. So like I can handle anything at this point. So that was, I
Yeah.
think, important for all of us to go
Yeah.
through.
What I was kind of thinking, like when I was reading, that part of the essay was like, you were so early in your term and you're planning months in ahead and you're trying to make sure everything's perfect. And then like this moment just like comes out of nowhere and it's like, well, we have to report on this. And these are the moments we live for, I feel
Yeah.
like in journalism. This is why we get into it. But at the same time, you're grappling with the side of you, as a lot of us as journalists have massive egos and are perfectionists. And you talk about, how when something went wrong, like you got down on yourself. And we do that a lot. But I feel like That's a moment that we always have to go back to that as journalists, as being like, well, this is why we do it. Like the adrenaline of covering these kind of stories. The idea that like it's not going to be perfect, but we're getting the news out there and we're helping people. I mean, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you driven to continue to do this crazy job?
Yeah, I think speaking as just like my time as EIC here at the paper, like what keeps me going is like there's a lot of people that rely on me, and I mean you're right. Like we get kind of an adrenaline rush when like there are these high stakes stories, especially when it's
Yeah.
like breaking news scenarios where like oh like Trump is coming, or like I mean Obama came later to campaign on Kamala Harris's behalf. So like um, when these like high stakes stories continue to break and they continue to unfold, and like we're in the middle of it, that's like almost like what I love most about the job and like what we're here for, because it's a hell of a way to, make sure like, or like I guess be reminded that your work matters when there's like a bunch of eyes on it.
Yeah.
Sometimes, we get caught up in reporting on stuff that's like day to day at Temple, like whether that be like public safety here or like Temple student government. And those stories are like very important, but sometimes it can feel like, who am I really writing for? And then when you have these big time, stories come every once in a while to campus, it's like, well, this is why we do it. Yeah, I think like the motivation comes from, there's a lot of people out there that like want the news. Trump came to Temple, Kamala came to Temple, Obama came to Temple, and we're the Temple news. So I mean, he talked about having an ego. I guess the ego in me is like, no one should cover this better than us because they're
Yeah.
coming to our campus. So
Yeah.
like, I mean, like the Inquirer can come, they cover the whole city. Like they're coming into our coverage zone. So like, no one's going to out report us in our own coverage
Right.
zone. So yeah, I mean, that's my motivation, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about some of the friends here that, helped you along the way and, really made your time here, and I appreciate the shout out, of course. Tell me about them. Tell me some of those like major people in your life.
Yeah, so I think just like almost anyone when they get to college, freshman year is tough. You find people,
Yeah.
but then sometimes they don't stick. Some people get lucky and their freshman year people are their people the whole way. I have friends like that. I'm pretty sure most of your friends are freshman year
That's
people.
what my essay's about.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So some people get lucky and they luck out, and that's super awesome. But some people, like I think most people in college, freshman year is like, oh, I hang out with this group of people for a while, but then it's like, like, are these actually my friends, or are they just the people that are like convenient for me to hang out with because like they live on my floor?
Right.
And then I think it changed for me when I joined the paper on a staff role as opposed to just like freelancing, because I was able to like be in the newsroom and talk to my peers and like
Yeah.
get to know them outside of work and things like that. And that's when my college experience really changed. Sophomore year, I was in the sports section, like I said earlier, and the sports editor at the time was Nick Gangweir, and the assistant was Javon Edmonds, and those were like the first two people I got to know like super well at college. Like we obviously worked together, we did a lot of fun things like as a section, but still just like hanging out with them like outside of the workspace was really fun. And then right after winter break, we hired, our news section was like kind of struggling at the time.
Yeah.
There's some turnover and things like that. So we poached WHIP radio actually and hired Oliver Sabo, who like kind of ran our news section despite like being there for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And he sat right next to me in the newsroom. And we just like, started chatting over the course of like several weeks. I don't know if I invited him out, to the bar with like my friends one night, or like he invited me. I forget how it, we went out one night, and yeah, it kind of just like snowballed from there. And then like I was going out with Oliver, and then our editor in chief at the time, Lawrence, like
Yeah.
got in the mix, and then even like people that it wasn't necessarily like hanging out with outside of the newsroom, like Oliver, Lawrence, they were like my two closest friends that year. I'm still close to them to this day, and
Right.
our relationship, like when we hang out, like we don't even talk about like the Temple News that much anymore. Like we're just like good friends. But there are people that like my relationship with them is still closely tied to TTN. Like I'm thinking like Molly Fisk, our features editor last year, or like Sarah Frasco, one of our managing editors last year, Julie Marola with another managing editor last year. Like these are people that I don't keep in touch with them every day. They're not like, people that I don't talk to them maybe as much as like Lawrence and Oliver, but like those are still people like I'm immensely grateful for, that I got to meet. I think like the fact that we got to spend these 2 or 3 or however many years it was together and like accomplish the same goal, work for the
Yeah.
same publication, and like really like succeeded in a lot of ways together, like breaking prominent stories and just like keeping up the well-oiled machine that like TTN is. So
Right.
yeah, just really grateful to like cross paths with everyone, and I'm not going to talk to everyone post grad, even people on like my staff right now. Like I'm probably not going to talk to everyone every single day after, May 8th when I graduate. But it's always nice to know like, this group I was able to accomplish a lot with and always be grateful for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, what do you want people to take away from this essay?
I think just like, especially for people who like come to college and struggle a bit to meet friends, like just find community. I like can't say enough about what the Temple News has done for me, like professionally, but also personally. Like I owe my professional achievements to it. I owe like a lot of my social life to it. I just like find your people and yeah, like do right by them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for being, such a great boss, great friend, great support system, both leading student media organizations.
Yeah.
Like that was good to have you. So thank you, man. And if there's, if you want to tell people what's next or where they can find you, follow your very successful career, which is ahead of you, please let them know.
Yeah, I'll it'll come out. So it's like people on my staff know, Pablo knows. I have plans lined up, but I'll
Where can they find out if they want to follow you?
on my Twitter, Samuel43. I'll share some career updates on there. Yeah.
You heard it here first. Now I speak to business manager Davik Butra. You talked about in your essay this walk that you do every Tuesday. Go a little more in depth into what it was about, your essay.
Yeah, so I wrote my essay on the fact. So I walk a mile down the street I live on. It's a straight shot to a donut shop, Federal Donuts, and they're kind of local to Philadelphia. And it was basically about, I spent a lot of time thinking about how I could get to know the city. I transferred here from the University of Delaware, and I only had 2 years to kind of feel like I fit in, feel like I belong, and that was kind of important to me that I got to know the city. So yeah, this was kind of like my version of how I got to do that. And I met a couple of people, a couple of locals. I started creating my own little traditions and habits and stuff like that. So the essay is just kind of like exploring that and what that was like for me in the last couple of months.
Yeah, I know you talk about in the essay how it's cheap coffee and donuts, but why in the world a mile there and back just for that? Well, like what started that?
Well, growing up, I grew up in Bucks County, and we'd come into the city sometimes. And I remember my dad talking about like, hey, like this is the best place ever. You know what I mean? Like all they sell is coffee, donuts, and fried chicken.
Right.
And at the time I liked fried chicken, but like my stomach would hurt if I ate a donut, and I definitely didn't like coffee at 7 years old. But I think that kind of stuck with me a little bit.
Yeah.
And just like my dad thought this was a cool place, and for whatever reason, I kind of thought so. And one day I was driving down the street, straight up to my apartment, and I saw it, and someone just kind of clicked at me like, this is right here. It's on, and maybe it's a mile away, but it's on the street I live on.
Right.
So I'm like, I gotta go try this. I gotta go wake up one morning and gotta go walk down.
That's awesome. And what time do you wake up for it? Like to get over there?
I mean, I can tell you, I set my alarm at 7 a.m. I don't
Okay.
know what time
That's
do I
not too
get
bad.
up.
That's not horrible.
No, it's definitely. I mean, like I don't know. How early do you get up before like a 9:30 a.m.?
For a 9:30 class,
Yeah.
I'd probably at 8 a.m. I would get up.
Okay.
Yeah. So not far off, but I'm a morning person, so I could do that, I think. But yeah, I know your story kind of resonated with me because this semester, I had just gone to I was craving a Reuben.
Okay.
So I went to Reading Terminal because I was like, I knew they had a good Reuben spot.
Yeah.
And I realized I barely ever ate here. I know it's a tourist hub and whatnot, and maybe it's corny, but I was like, I'll just start exploring all the little shops that they have in there.
Yeah.
And I haven't completed it yet, but
You've been to most of them though?
not most of them. No,
Okay.
no. I get stuck on them because there's I just want to go back to the same places. Like the Cajun spot is really good. I love their gumbo. And then they have a good cheesesteak spot too, which I feel like is underrated in this city. But
But everyone's got a good cheesesteak spot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've mentioned some of the people you've met along the way in these walks. Tell me about the impact they've had in your life.
I mean, it's been very basic, but it's I think the way I think about it is these people aren't people that I'd meet in my entire life.
Yeah.
It's just we have no connection, logistically. It's just I've bumped into them because of this pattern that I've been doing once a week. So it definitely took a while to kind of build these relationships because I'm not the type of guy, and I don't think anyone is. When you're in Philly and it's 8 a.m, you're not going to be running and yelling at people. You're going to get yourself beat up or something like that. But yeah, the first one was this crossing guard, and to be honest, even now I don't know how old he is. I feel like he's anywhere between 17 and 35. Like, I really have no idea. And I just like, eventually he started recognizing me. I could tell because he'd, bring the stop sign out and I'd walk, and eventually I gave him the fist bump. And then eventually I just said, hey man, I walk down here once a week, and I kind of nod politely. I'm like, I'm just going to introduce myself so we can actually say hi. And he introduced himself. His name's Dean. And then the next week I found out that he was a comedian in the area.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. And then like a couple of weeks later, he's like, so do you want to be my manager? And I'm like, Dean, like what the hell are you talking about? Like, your manager? And he's like, yeah, you want to manage my comedian career? I'm like, well, why don't I see you perform first? I don't want to attach my name to some crap product.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping I can go to one of his shows and stuff like that. But it's like little stuff like that. Like,
that's awesome.
There's no reason to have that, but I kind of got to.
That's so cool. Yeah. I mean, it's the way you're like what you were just saying. It reminds me. I was talking to one of the members at WHIP.
Yeah.
Well, I was overhearing a conversation really in the studio a week ago or two, and they were talking about how, every day or like whenever, change your routine where you do everything 2 minutes later or 5 minutes later or 5 minutes before you usually do it. And then, you're walking to class, you're walking to wherever, and your whole world changes. You see new people, you interact with new things.
Yeah.
And you realize, like, I don't know, like you're cognizant of like the world that you're living in the city, which is really awesome. So that being said, like, what have you learned about Philadelphia through these walks?
Well, I think the first thing I learned was that I was definitely not going to learn anything about Philadelphia by trying too hard. You know what I mean? I've done a little bit of work in the city, just for, the newspaper here and a local newspaper in the area. And I think just like when I try too hard, I'm looking to go to events, and that feels a little too fabricated. Sure. So I think the most that I've learned is just from bumping into people by mistake. And I think it's hard for me to say what I've learned, because maybe it's just city life. I've never lived in a city before. Maybe this is the same in Boston and New York or something like that. But I do get that vibe. Maybe it's some cinematic thing I built up in my head that it feels very raw. People are going to go and they're going to go run their errands in sweats and kind of look like crap and own it. You know what I mean? That's awesome. Like I've been spending some time in Boston, in New York this semester, and I don't feel like that's a thing. Everyone like has like kind of dressed up in their white Sherpas and stuff like that. And I'm like, of course this is just my experience, but I'm like, that's dumb. Go live your life. Go look like crap and go do what you got to do. And I think I've learned that there's a little bit of, do what you're going to do and don't give a damn, what people are looking 100%. At. And that's fun. It's a fun environment to be in.
100%. Yeah. And then on the kind of inverse of that, what have you learned about yourself?
I think I've learned that I like that. I think, I've learned that I'm a man of habit. Yeah. That going down and doing the same thing, it keeps me sane. So simultaneously, I had this econ class that I was taking when I was walking down before this class, I'd walk down and then I'd go to class, and then all of a sudden we had 2.5 weeks off because my professor was doing one-on-one meetings. I like lost my mind, and I didn't even realize I wasn't doing this walk and I wasn't going to class. But without that, that extra bit of structure, I think this has taught me that I'm a man of habit, and I need to kind of keep on and do those same things over and over again, and that gives me a lot of personal satiation. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I learned.
Yeah, that's awesome. Overall, though, like, what do you want people to take away from this essay?
That's a good question. I think at least the point of it for me, and it's in the eye of the reader, I suppose, but that my journey was individual. I think there's plenty of people who do a whole lot more than me, and maybe they do know the city more. I don't know, and there's people who know less, and they might know more too. But I think it's about whatever it looks like to know the area around you. It can be very individual, and that's pretty cool. On top of that, I think to encourage people who aren't thinking about, we live in a pretty cool area. It's definitely a unique place. And it was important for me to feel like I knew it. Whether I do or don't, who knows? But to feel like I knew it. And I feel like, doing my due diligence with that was important. So I hope people at least acknowledge that they're in a really cool area. Yeah. And I hope they go and explore whatever it means to make this place important to you. Go explore that.
100%. Yeah. Well, if there's any future endeavors you want to share with the people, or a place where people can follow your incredible career when it takes off, please let them know.
Yeah. I don't quite know what I'm doing post-grad. I've been interviewing at some consultancies and stuff like that, but My LinkedIn is just my name. Look me up on Instagram if you want to bother me. I'm around. And also, if you see me, just kind of yell at me or something like that. I'll probably turn.
Now I speak to newsletter editor Kara Kishter. We wrote kind of similar stories about our friends. We have like almost similar stories. Maryland, meeting our friends in the dorms, all that stuff. I mean, give me a quick summary of what the essay's about.
Yeah, so I wrote about, as you said, I'm from Maryland. I'm from a pretty small rural area. And I love it. And I love my friends from home. It's like all like I had a great childhood and everything. It was just like I was so ready by the time I graduated high school to get out and see like a whole new world. And I always really wanted to go to a city, and I just like had this like my 18-year-old self had this like vision of like what college and everything was going to be like. And for me, it was just like I was so excited to meet new people, and I thought it was going to be like this whole big process, and I was so scared. And then like the first day when I moved into the dorms, like my roommate that I met on Facebook, and I talk about that in the personal essay, and the girls on my dorm floor, like we all just like immediately became friends. But the essay, I talk about the song Wide Open Spaces by the Chicks, because growing up in like a kind of a rural area, like their music just kind of resonates. And I love them, and it's like one of my favorite songs, and I would listen to that song a lot when I was getting ready to move out, because that's kind of what that song's about. And yeah, I just like I think about that song all the time throughout college, and especially now as I'm kind of like going on to Wide Open Spaces again and like moving again and like figuring out what I'm gonna do now and like navigating the next chapter, because that's kind of what that song's about. So yeah, it was just kind of a song that like kind of so many people know, that feels really personal because it's so individualized, and relating that to my life and my awesome friends that I met at Temple.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, tell me about the little corner that is Whitehall, because that's a very distant part of campus for a lot of people.
Yeah. So Whitehall, that was our little corner of the world, and we loved it. And it's one of those things that like when other people talk about it that didn't live there, they're like, oh God, like you lived in Whitehall, blah, blah, blah. But then when we talk about it, we were like, that was the best. Like it was, we loved it there. Like our RA was awesome. Everybody on our floor was super fun. And like, we loved it there. Like the security guards, like we just like, and it, because it's kind of so separate, it's like kind of our own little special thing in a weird way. And it was like, we all ended up there because it was like the last available dorm in like the housing portal, which like makes sense in hindsight, but it just like totally worked out. And like you pick the random room with like whoever's across from you, like whatever. And it just like worked out that we all like ended up in the exact same place at the same time. It feels very like serendipitous. So Whitehall's awesome. I love it.
100%. Yeah. If you want to expand about, maybe Jules and like some of your other friends that you mentioned, like what do they mean to you and how's it been?
Yeah, they're just awesome. Like I got so lucky, and that's just like a big thing I talk about was like, I didn't have to try hard. I didn't have to do anything to like earn it or deserve it. I feel like that's what I was so afraid of when I was coming to Temple. I was like, like, are people going to like you? And like, what kind of people are you going to meet? Like, you have no idea. And I didn't know anybody from my high school or my hometown at all coming here. So I was like really doing this on my own, which I wanted, but scary too. And like I met Jules, who's like my best friend. She's awesome. We met on Facebook, like senior year of high school, and like called on the phone a couple times. And then when we moved in the first day, I feel like it felt like how it feels now. When I talked to her, like it was just like, there was never a second where we weren't how we are. And then it kind of went the same for the girls across the hall. We just had this like really ridiculous like dorm floor meeting that like led to just like everyone was kind of nervous and didn't really know what to do because it's the first week of college and none of us knew anybody from home there. So we all just kind of started hanging out. And a lot of people say like, oh, the people you meet like your freshman year at the beginning, like you never talk to again. Like you just, the people that just you start out with. But we always joke like we met like a few people like our first week of freshman year, and then we like never expanded from there. So
yeah, I mean, I know you talked about wanting to be in the city and stuff, but I know like coming from Maryland, like you said, like Temple was like not really the popular choice. I think there was like 2 people in my graduating class, maybe one other person that went to Temple. What attracted you initially to Temple?
Yeah, I just always was like, I had the very like, I don't know, Carrie Bradshaw, like I'm going to be a girl in the big city and like whatever. And New York was too expensive. And a lot of the schools, they were like way out of my budget. So I was like, Philadelphia is the perfect compromise, and it's a little bit closer to home. And I just really wanted like the best of both worlds, to have like the campus and like college quintessential experience. Cause like all my friends from home go to like University of Maryland, and like felt a little bit like I was.
I hate that school.
What? Why?
I applied to 12 schools. They are the only one to deny
Are you
me.
kidding me?
I could go on.
They wanted you to experience something.
They did. They did. Yeah.
No, they've been very kind to me at that school. But regardless, I was like feeling a little bit like I want a little bit of that, but I don't need to go there with like all of my friends from high school. And so I was like, I visited Temple with my dad, and I just got back in the car and I was like, yeah, like that's the one. I didn't really have to like sit
100%.
with it anymore. I just like kind of went and I was like, yeah, that I just had this very like instinctive feeling that it was like the right place, and I was totally right, which again, very lucky, didn't do anything to like deserve that, but it just worked out. So yeah.
Is there like a certain line maybe from the Chick song that you mentioned that it's like, this is what really resonates with me?
Yes. The end of the chorus, like they say, like she knows the highest stakes. Like I was just, that was always a thing where it wasn't just like, oh, I'm so excited. And I talk about that a little bit in the essay of like, they're not just glamorizing it like I'm gonna move out and everything's gonna be awesome. Like the song's about like I need this. It's less like I'm just so excited. It's like this needs to happen, and I know that like it could go really wrong and things could be terrible and scary, but that like I just have to. And that I think why I relate to it so much is it was less just like I'm gonna do this awesome thing and more like I have to do this thing regardless of how it happens. So I think like they talk about like I'm like blanking like right now, but it's like she knows the highest stakes and like room to make big mistakes. Like it's very like cheesy, but like it's true. And I feel like it's such like a simple song that like, again, like I said before, like it's one of those to me that like it feels so personal. Like you're the only one that knows that song, even though like everybody knows that song, because it's like everyone can kind of relate to it in one way or another. So
for sure. Yeah. What do you want people to take away from this essay?
Honestly, just like I think for me, it's just about like not feeling like you have to try so hard or like you have to look so far. And I talk like a little bit about like there's like that quote, it's like you take yourself everywhere you go, and like thinking like I'm not happy where I am in my life, I have to like go and change everything or like be around all new people. And that was very much my mindset when I was graduating high school. I was like, everything's gonna be awesome when I go to college because it's all gonna be different. And then I quickly was like, I'm still me. Like the things that were whatever before are still going to be like that now. And I think like less than focusing on like everything needs to be different. It's like kind of like taking it what's like right in front of you and appreciating it and like kind of realizing like it doesn't have to be like, something doesn't have to be exactly what you envisioned to be like awesome and like everything you wanted it to be without you having to try so hard to make it that. So yeah,
100%. Well, if you want to share any of your post-grad plans or like anywhere people can follow your incredible career, please share it.
My God, thank you. Okay, let's see. I'm staying in Philly, so I'll be around. Are you staying in Philly? Okay,
we'll
so
see.
sorry. It's like it's very up in the air.
I'll live out my lease here. I think my mom wants me to move back home, but
totally.
You gotta love the city.
I get it. But yeah, I'm staying in Philly. My roommates and I, the same gals. Actually, one of them's moving back home, which is very sad. But she lives in like Delco, so she'll be visiting.
Okay.
Yeah. But we're all still living together, funnily enough. So we're like apartment hunting and stuff right now. Just like living and working in the city. But I do photography too, as well as newsletter editing. So follow me on Instagram. Feels a little cheesy for me to plug, but you know what? When in Rome.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, from meeting each other like what, senior week?
We met each other
on senior week.
You were like the first Temple person I probably ever met, except for like the 3 other kids that I met at senior week. Yeah. That go to Temple. So we made it.
From that to exchanging like hellos for 4 years and then now like graduating as coworkers. Congrats.
Thank you. You too. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you. Now I speak to opinion editor Michaela Rouse. You wrote a very poetic essay, I would say, kind of about, well, it's nothing matters. So just give me a quick summary of what that is.
Right. So nothing matters kind of sounds very negative. I think a lot of people would hear that and think, get that girl to a therapist immediately. But I kind of take it in more of like an optimistic, nihilistic sense rather than nothing matters, point blank, period. In my essay, I kind of just talk about how since nothing matters, there's greater consequences to everything going on around you. Like you should look at the little things a bit better, a bit brighter. Essentially, it just like gave a greater purpose to my life. I write about it in the essay, the realization that nothing matters came to me after a death of a family friend. And it greatly impacted my life and the way I just kind of see everything around me. I kind of took consequences a bit more seriously. I thought, death was going to hit me out of nowhere like it hit my friend. But so it kind of shifted my perspective a bit. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the $1 million question here is obviously what is the meaning of life, I guess, or to you, because you do kind of end it off saying like everybody should have their own definition of
Right.
what that meaning is. So what is it to you?
The meaning of life?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know if there is a meaning of life to me. As I said, nothing really matters.
Right.
So I kind of just take it day by day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, you have to like plan for the future and be realistic with yourself, but I don't let the little things get me.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't brush over, finding a flower I really like or looking at a rainbow or a double rainbow after the rain.
Yeah.
It's, taking every little piece of happiness and putting as much meaning into it as you would like, or taking sadness and putting meaning to it. It's giving everything as much value as you would like it to.
Yeah.
That's what it would mean for me. I don't know what it means for other people.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about then kind of the journey of like recovering from this loss and, coming to this realization and, I don't know, getting better, I guess.
Yeah. So I talk about in my essay that, after I had this realization, I started to go to like therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I started to cope in a healthier manner.
Mm-hmm.
I also spoke about in my piece how I have a very overactive imagination, and I've always had it. As a kid, I wasn't one of those kids with an imaginary friend. However, I could like make up stories in my mind, or I like imagine myself at the top of Mount Rushmore and just stupid things like that. I would say that talent and also vice never really went away. Mm-hmm. It developed into something I really can't control at times, and whenever I had like experienced that loss, it became a huge vice. Like I said, it became something I couldn't really control. I started to see the worst part of life. I started to see something happening to me resulting in either like death or I don't know, just it got away from me. And I talked about, like I said in the essay, going to therapy and being able to find healthy motives to deal with these thoughts and letting them brush away in my head rather than ruminating on them. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned that writing is kind of a release for you, like a great pastime. Tell me how that's helped you a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think writing has always been a big strong suit of my life, but it wasn't until I'd say I started writing for Temple News that I realized how much I get out of it. I started writing for Temple News sophomore year, and it was an essay about my dad, and it has very similar themes to the one I am writing now or gets published on Tuesday. And it essentially talked about how I can find value in anything around me. It's essentially like I found value in an acorn, which is so minuscule. It seems so stupid, but after writing that first essay, I realized that there's so much to do with words. You can write essays about your own personal experiences like you did, like I did. You get that sort of feeling out that you can't really sometimes speak or say or think all to yourself, so you want to write it down. Or another passion I found when writing for Temple News was like opinion writing and writing columns about the little life stories or things I think are injustices to the world, and I'm able to speak on a little bit higher, give people stories or voices. And I think being able to give people platform or writing about my own opinions at time is where I really found purpose in life and where I found purpose in writing. Yeah.
For sure. Kind of looking back at your time at TTN, whether it's a column, an essay, what do you think was your favorite piece you've ever published?
Oh my God, I don't know. Wow, that's hard to answer. I don't know. I think I'm proud of everything I've ever written.
If you want to sit on it, maybe you have in mind, maybe it's easier, I know it's easier for me at least, to think of like another piece from somebody, like maybe a freelancer or something, or maybe one of Bradley's pieces that you were like, this is my favorite from another person.
I will say, you just spoke of Bradley. Bradley does such a good job of writing about influences on their life, like specifically individual influences. Last time I was on the podcast, I talked about Anthony Bourdain. That one really sticks with me. I think I am very proud of that piece. And in the same thread, I'm always proud of when Bradley writes about influences on their life, like Joan Didion. They wrote an essay that's going to come out soon, and it really shocked me how well written it was. And it always astounds me when people can write about influences dead or alive. And I don't know. Yeah, I would say those are the essays that really, really strike a chord in me.
For sure. Yeah. What do you want people to get away from this essay? Take away, I should say.
For my essay in particular, I should hope that people I hope people find that not as much matters as many people think it does. Life is just risks and doing what you want to do and hoping that it goes in the best direction it can.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So don't put too much value on the things that really don't deserve as much time. But in general, from the commencement essay issue, I hope people see these different experiences that many of these graduating seniors have gone through, and maybe incoming freshmen or freshmen going to sophomore year realize that the time is short in college. And in that short time, get an experience that will stick with you throughout the rest of your life.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if you want to flex your post-grad plans, please do so. Or if there's a place where people can follow the incredible rest of the career you're going to have, please plug that.
Yeah. Post-grad plans, who knows? I think I'm going to go to law school within the next year, hoping to maybe be a lawyer. Yeah, and then for our distant future, probably journalism. It's always a love.
Yeah.
Can't really get rid of that. Follow me on Instagram. I'm plugging that. Just my name. Just my first name. But yeah, that's all.
Great. Yeah. Now I speak to multimedia editor Kaisa Morris. And we were just talking. I know she's usually behind the camera, but she's in front. But yeah, you wrote a really great essay, kind of your whole journey through college, even before that. If you want to give a quick summary about that.
Yeah, totally. So I was born and I grew up in San Jose, California, which is in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so I grew up there, went to high school there, had all my main friends there.
Yeah.
But my family, a lot of them are just from places that are further away. So travel was very normal in my family. Like I never grew up near any close family members aside from my parents. So it was relatively normal to spend time apart. So my aunt lived out on the East Coast, and I'd always loved it. And I was looking at journalism schools, and there's a lot more to choose from on the East Coast. And I got the opportunity to come to Temple. And it was a very ambitious choice, but ultimately I'm very happy that I took it because it really pushed me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, 100%.
It was crazy moving though.
I can imagine. Yeah. Tell me about that. Like when you kind of mentioned it in the article, but like you had this realization like the second you touched down in Philadelphia, like, oh crap, like what am I doing right now?
Oh, I remember that day so clearly. I was so scared. So can I start from the beginning of the day?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So my flight left at like so early in the morning. So the night before, me and like my 3 closest friends from high school, we took a ride in one of their cars and we were looking at because some of us went to different high schools. We just like went past all our high schools, like looked at all the places we like went to, and then we all kind of stayed the night over at my house, and then I just like gave them all a hug, and it was really emotional. But then I was on my way. We drove to SFO, San Francisco Airport. And when I touched down, I just remember that whole flight, like, I was just like, oh my gosh, it's real now. Like, I'm in a completely new city that I've only been to, like, 3 times in my entire life. I was like, oh my God, like, what have I done? And I remember going into the hotel with my parents, and I was just so freaked out. But as time went on, like moving in and like, I immediately started making friends. And some of those friends that I made that first week are still my closest friends. So it worked out really well. But yeah, that moment touching down it was just like the embodiment of the change that I had feared. So it was so freaky. But, you know, there's going to be tons of moments like that.
For sure.
So yeah.
100%. And like, you know, you kind of touch on it a little bit, but like those early days and like kind of finding meaning and, well, not meaning, but like your purpose and realizing, oh, this is why I'm here in like journalism and society, and like starting to enjoy your classes. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, it was nice at first because, well, I mean, everyone hates all the stupid icebreakers you start off with. Like, yeah, everyone hates that. But after that kind of was over with, we were just starting to learn things. And, you know, in the freshman year, you're doing all the like big lecture hall stuff. So I kind of got to be anonymous and, you know, didn't really have to introduce myself that much. I could just kind of sit and be in my own world and just like learn all these important fundamentals. So that was really fun. And then, you know, I like how from there you could kind of choose the direction you wanted to go in and like kind of go into smaller and smaller classes. But I like that it started off big so that the pressure is kind of taken off to like immediately build these connections. And, you know, it was just nice to be able to kind of be in my own world a little bit in those really big classes. So
100%.
I enjoyed that part a lot for sure.
Of course. And like on the topic of like honing in on your interests, you touch on, you know, Queer Temple and TTN and, you know, really getting down to the grit of like actually doing video. Tell me your experience with that.
Honestly, it just started off with, what do you call it when they have all the clubs, like Temple Fest? Yeah, so that's how I found TUTV. And I'd actually recognized one of the people who worked at Queer Temple because I had like been at a party with them that one of my friends brought them, and like we made friends. So I was just talking with them, the wonderful Allison Beck, which
gotta love her.
Yeah, we love her. She's amazing. Yeah, so I met with them and they kind of just like introduced me into that world a little bit and kind of took some of the pressure off of me, just being like, oh, we're all like friends here. Like, just do whatever you're comfortable with. You don't have to do anything crazy. Just like dip your toes in, see how it feels. And I did. And I ended up becoming like a more permanent like floor director, which was so much fun. Like, I didn't even realize that I liked being in the studio until I just randomly decided to try it. And then I could just do it whenever I felt like I wanted to.
Yeah.
Because those shows weren't super often, maybe like once or twice a month.
Sure.
But that was really fun. Yeah. But then coming into the Temple News, it was a fun connection because my roommate, who I'm still roommates with, Fallon Roth, the old editor-in-chief, was elementary school best friends with my roommate. Yeah. So that was a really cool connection. And I just randomly decided to apply because I think I'd finished pretty much all my work for sophomore year, like that last semester. Yeah. And I just saw the application and I was like, you know what? Like, why not? Nothing to lose. So yeah, that was really amazing getting that interview and hearing back and just being so excited to be a part of something where I was like, I know video is something that I liked. I liked it ever since high school. Like I was in more creative video production back then. Sure. So yeah, that was just a really awesome experience, I think.
For sure. What do you want people to take away from this essay?
I want people to take away that change is inevitable. And if you want to evolve, you have to be able to change. Like you have to be able to, you know, sometimes to get that opportunity, you might have to travel and leave your family for a little bit or leave your friends or maybe take on a position that you don't feel like you're necessarily capable of doing. But if you're able to just kind of close your eyes and just say, okay, whatever, and just give it a try, like, I think really good things can come from that. And that's exactly what I did moving here. Like, it was such a big chance, but I found that it worked out for me. And yeah, take the chance. I don't know.
For sure. Yeah. Well, if you have any post-grad plans if you have post-grad plans yet, feel free to share them. Or where can people follow the rest of your incredible career?
So I'm still in I don't know if I'm allowed to say, bad words, but I'm in a, the job market is not fun. So
Yeah.
it's just applying left and right. So we'll see how that goes. But
Yeah.
in the meantime, I have a video Instagram, kaisa.video, KAJSA.video. LinkedIn. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of my work is published on the Temple News YouTube channel. So
For
that
sure.
would be a good spot, or the Temple News Instagram.
Yeah, well, congrats for not only graduating, but you don't have to deal with me stealing your chair in the office anymore. So that's good.
Well, congratulations to you too. I know you're graduating as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
Now I speak to print design editor Lindsay Griswold. You wrote a really, I think, unique, kind of different from a lot of other people's essays about nature and kind of your relationship with it. So would you like to give just a quick summary about that?
Yeah, sure. So I actually took a backpacking class this semester.
I've heard really great things about it.
It's awesome. I really recommend. I didn't really know it existed until a couple months ago. And basically you just like camp like a ton during the actual class, and it got me just like really into like hiking more and like being outside more, and like especially like with the city and everything. I say this in my essay, like I just hated being outside. I hated bugs. I like to like climb trees every now and then, but like that was about it.
Right.
But then like I came here and like there's just barely any trees, grass, like any place to like really like sit outside and enjoy the nature, that I think my body was almost like, you're like deprived, like almost like sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
And so I would just like spend more time walking around outside and like being on the sun. And yeah, I just like really love it now. I like went camping for the first time like last year officially, which is weird because like I say in my essay too that like my mom camped her entire life,
Right.
and she just like never took us camping. Not like that she had to, but but yeah, it was funny. Like my first time camping was with a bunch of my friends, and it was awesome. I had a blast.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you mentioned you grew up next to the beach. I know you say your dad was a beach person. Did you like the beach at least, or it just wasn't the forest?
I did love the beach. My brother hates the beach, but I used to like surf a lot when I was younger. I would go like every day, like over the summer,
awesome.
like because a lot of my friends' parents were teachers, so that we all just like piled to the beach like for the entire day, every day. But I think because like, you go to the beach, there's no like bugs, there's no trees.
Right.
Like, so I was like, oh, this is great. Like,
Yeah.
just barren sand and water. That's
100%.
like what I love.
100%. Yeah. And like, what do you think, like, obviously you mentioned a lot of your friends that you made here at Temple could be like considered outdoorsy, but like, tell me about the process of like your perspective changing about the outdoors.
Yeah. I guess I feel like Temple is like, it's such a small campus.
Yeah.
And like, so you can really see everyone within like 10 minutes. And so when I was a freshman, especially, like I quickly realized like how, like if it's like over 50 degrees, everyone's outside.
Yeah.
Literally everyone and their mom is standing outside, sitting on like the bare concrete. And I think like I just like quickly picked up on like, okay, like I'm gonna make most of my friends probably like sitting outside and like seeing them walk by and stuff like that. And so like me and my roommates, like we just like would take out like a blanket every single day and sit outside and have like random people come up to us. And also like a lot more people, at least like our freshman year, like were slacklining a lot. Yeah. And so like I was just like, oh, this seems lit. Like I've never done this before. Like let's try walking on this rope. And so I met a lot of people that way too. And like, yeah, it was just awesome. Everyone being outside. And
yeah, no, I think like when I first visited Temple, it was like still COVID time, so they had like the circles on Beery Beach and stuff where like people were spaced out. But like when I actually got on campus and it was like that fall and like things started to lighten up and stuff, like everybody on campus was like, "Oh, this is college!" Like everybody around, like it felt like a movie, honestly. But yeah, I resonate with that like a lot because I try to spend as much time on Beery Beach as like I possibly can.
Yeah, literally.
And I feel like, especially in the last like year or two, just like more people vending like vintage clothing and stuff. And then you got the dude with the metal pan drum.
Oh, yeah.
There's an accordion guy out there now next to the Saxby.
Someone's got some sort of instrument going. And it just like makes you want to like it being nice out, like obviously makes you want to be outside more, but like having other people like so obviously enjoy like other people's company and like sitting outside, like it's just like makes you be like, oh, this is awesome. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I love this.
Yeah. I mean, obviously like Temple has like compared to other parts of the city, like a lot of green spaces, which is awesome. But you know, when you're out there like trying to explore more, like what are some of your favorite spots in the city with like green spaces? Or like, how do you find good green spaces in Philly?
I guess honestly, I work in South Philly. I work at Ultimo Coffee at Plug, and and usually like sometimes I'll like walk to work, and there's always just like small little parks that I'll walk past while going there that I've like never seen before. Yeah. And so like I feel like just like exploring is how I've found a lot of my favorite spots. Like also just like going to like the Schuylkill River, like there's like nothing better than like just like a nice patch of grass and like the river. It's like so pretty, like especially like 5 p.m. like that is like awesome. 100%. Like a picnic and everything. So definitely Schuylkill River. FDR Park, like especially in the summer they do that big, I don't know what it is. I think it's like an Asian market like every weekend. Okay. And it's like
so I know what you're talking about.
They do like canoeing too in the lake. Like it's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know if you want to gatekeep, but you mentioned you have a favorite spot on campus. Do you want to tell people what that spot is?
Ooh, yes. I really like the little Narnia area. That's like in between like Bury and like the biology building, I think. Okay. But I also recently have been like sitting a lot of the time by like Fox in that like grass area over there. Sure. That's so underrated. Like so many people walk through there, and if you're like a big people watcher like I am,
I was gonna bring that up.
Yeah,
I think that's the only reason I spend time outside is just people watch.
literally I kind of wish I talked about that in my essay, because I think like my love for just like watching people is honestly what made me get also like really into like being outside more.
Honestly, like you might still hate the outdoors in the forest. Like it's just the people, because in the forest you're not gonna see anybody.
Exactly. Yeah, literally. So you know, maybe it's just like my love being like, oh, that person's outfit is really, really cool. Oh, I wonder what they're talking about over there. But in terms of like hiking and stuff, my sister just moved to Seattle. Okay. And so like she's been getting really into hiking, and my brother a couple years ago got like really into like climbing and camping like out of nowhere. So like all three of us are kind of like going back to our blood roots. Sick. I guess.
Little family trip on the horizon.
Yeah, literally. And I think like because my brother got so into it, it made me kind of like get into it a lot more too.
Yeah. So I mean, how would you describe your relationship with nature now? Like, are you still ill bugs but like cool sunlight, or?
No, I honestly like. I like consciously realized the other day I was like sitting outside and there was this spider crawling on me, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I like took it up with my hand and I was like, wait a second, who am I right now? Like 4 or 5 months ago or years ago, I would have been like, oh my God, this is terrifying. Like I used to scream bloody murder when a bee came near me. Yeah. And I mean, maybe it is just like sitting outside more, or maybe it's like the cockroaches in my house. I don't know, but I low-key love them. I love when a ladybug lands on me. I have to take a pic. Like it's great.
It's awesome. Well, what do you want people to take away from this essay?
Accept change, personal change, personal growth. Like it's scary. And I guess I felt stubborn in my ways of like not opening myself up to like being more comfortable in other areas besides just like being outside. But change is like so cool and so awesome if you really accept it.
100%. Well, if you got any post-grad plans that you want to share, or plug where people can follow the rest of your incredible career, please do.
Yeah, you can follow me at Lynn's Grizz on Instagram. I'll just be working as a barista at Ultimo in Graduate Hospital for who knows how long. Yeah. But yeah.
Now I speak to assistant features editor Mike Nonamaker. You wrote a great essay. about, TTN and kind of finding your calling for journalism. If you want to give me a quick summary about that.
Of course. Yeah. I wanted to focus it on, because I've had like a long journey through college, took some time off, came back. So for a while there, I felt like I had lost some years, to COVID. We went online and, I tried to push through it. And eventually I was just like, I need to take some time away and kind of gather myself. So kind of as I was writing it, I came to this realization, like, it really worked out because I ended up at TTN. And without all that, hardship in the middle, I wouldn't really have ended up here. I might have a marketing degree right now. And that's, would be ideal.
Yeah. Tell me about the trials and tribulations of COVID. Like, go deeper into that. What was campus like? At what point maybe did you get like burnt out and you were like, I just can't do this anymore,
Yeah. So obviously I was in the Fox School of Business. I was a marketing major and I was taking like financial accounting, intro to risk management. Like, I don't know what I was doing there. And this was over COVID. I was taking these classes online. This is when Zoom was fresh. So like professors didn't know how to work it.
Right.
Students didn't really know. Like it was so new. Now they got a handle on it. But back then it was just, you're paying full tuition for,
half the education.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it's not matching up. And obviously you're kind of, all those great things about college that kind of gets you through the classes are then kind of taken away, because you're not around friends as much. You're kind of isolated.
Yeah.
And it didn't help the whole experience. And at the same time, I just wasn't sure about how much I was invested in Fox and in marketing.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Tell me about your time at TTN, like before you were on staff and kind of how that opportunity came about.
Yeah. So there was my history class last semester. The girl I sat next to happened to be the assistant features editor, the position I have now. And she wanted to bring me on as a freelancer. But then she ended up going in a different direction.
Yeah.
I remember she talked to me. It was like some internship. So she was going to continue with journalism, but was going to put her time into that. So the position opened up. I was ready to, start freelancing some articles, but I walked in, Sam was like, "Hey, do you want to interview for this position?" I was like, dude, I don't feel very qualified to, but I certainly will. And I think maybe like 4 people interviewed. And, it didn't feel like I had much to stand on. Obviously I didn't have, I had been in the journalism major for a bit, but, didn't really have any extracurricular work to like, talk about in that interview. But I just made it clear that I was willing to learn and, willing to do whatever it takes to kind of become a better writer. And, I was ready to get involved.
Yeah. And I think that's like the line that stood out to me the most. I think I don't know if anybody heard me, but I audibly went, when I was reading it in here. When you said, and I don't know if this is verbatim, but you're not expected to be perfect here at TTN, but you're expected to learn. And I was like, that really hit me. And yeah, I mean, tell me, to that point, tell me about like, have you felt like your skills or whatnot is just like taking an upswing? Cause I've definitely seen it. Like the first pitch or like whatever you had at a budget, like it kind of got knocked down, but, man, you really took off though. You did.
Yeah. I think I've really improved, and you can tell just by looking back at some of those early articles. And that's what, Bailey and Jaden said. They're like, I remember when I came here for orientation, Bradley said the funniest thing. He was like, he was talking about his early articles when he first came here, and he was like, "I thought I ate, but it was just a nibble." I'll never forget him saying that. It's like one of the funniest things I've heard. But so that's pretty much what it was. But when you're in an environment where it's like we're all students here, we're all learning from each other. No one's a professional yet, so it really is just an environment where you can go ask for advice. Everybody's approachable. You don't feel like you're dragging someone down just by asking for help. And, it's that kind of environment. So it was easy to learn, easy to get work done, always felt productive when I'm here. And
100%.
I've definitely become a better writer just from working with, all these people in the newsroom.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what are some of the, your favorite pieces or things that you've been able to accomplish that you're really proud of?
Yeah, I mean, I loved working on the bar guide. That was a lot of fun, especially because it gets you off campus and, just kind of opportunity where it's doesn't need that temple tie so much. We were able to go out and feature these bars that we enjoy, we like, and the community issue as well. That was an opportunity to connect with, people in North Philadelphia rather than just like students and professors. So those were some of my favorite. We've had a lot of good like special issues, and those were always so much fun working on.
Yeah. 100%. What do you want people to take away from this essay?
Yeah, that's a great question. I want them, if whoever reads it, I mean, I would love them to understand that sometimes it's not just going to be like a flying forest situation. You know what I mean? It's not always just going to be traditional. You might transfer to a different college. I went from Fox to Klein. It might take you 5 years. You might have to take a semester off and figure out what you really want to do, because not everybody knows when they're 18. Like, this is what I want to do, and that's where I was at. So it's not always just going to be 4 years and you're out of there. Sometimes you got to figure out what you want to do in life, and I'm glad it kind of came around and I ended up here, and now I have that kind of direction that I was looking for.
100%. Well, if you want to flex any of your post-grad plans, please do, or plug wherever people can follow the rest of your incredible career.
Yeah, I mean, post-grad, it's kind of up in the air. We'll see where I end up, but the another takeaway is, like, I'm just very glad to have this on the resume, have something that I really feel like I gained skills from. And we'll just, when I start the job hunt, man, that it's huge to have this experience under my belt for sure.
100%, man.
Yeah.
Now I speak to assistant news editor Kylie Sokoloff. You wrote probably the most complex essay I had to read, which it was awesome though. It was really, like, that's not a diss. That was really awesome. There's a lot of imagery about kind of reading Macbeth twice and how it kind of worked into your own life. So give us a quick little explanation of what that was all about.
Yeah, well, sorry to make you think so hard.
No, that's what they're for.
Well, it's funny. As I was walking over here, I was listening to the song that I love right now, and I just keep like restarting it back to zero every time that I.
What song is it?
It's Crush by Ethel Cain.
Okay.
It didn't just, it like sounds so good. You know what I mean? But something I wrote about in my essay is, about how things are always subject to change. And reading Macbeth again, at kind of an emotional crossroads of my life, as much as I'm trying to be like, I got the degree, let's get out of here. I am finding myself, looking back. And it's, interesting to think about Macbeth as this character who was not always fated to kill the king, and at one point, maybe he didn't. And such an emotional crux of the play is that he's dealing with that. He's dealing with this changing version of himself, maybe that was latent or that he didn't always understand. And, just thinking about I was thinking about the parts of myself that have changed the last 4 years and sort of the pitfalls of being married to, old versions of yourself or learning about new versions of yourself that maybe you haven't fully processed yet.
Yeah.
And that's,
it's beautiful.
What's it about?
Tell me if you'd like, what do you mean by it? You feel as if you used to be special, and how has that changed?
Have you ever heard of the concept of lucky girl syndrome?
Somewhat,
or lucky person syndrome, I guess. Just the idea that when you have a strong center, not necessarily about things that you like, or ideas of yourself, just that you have like a circle of things that you either instantly reject or accept based on like intuition, whether it's choices or relationships or just what you do in your day-to-day life. And to clarify, I I don't think I'm special, but I used to believe that, you know, life was sort of conspiring for me, and I like acted in a manner as such. And so, you know, I looked at things with excitement, and I had not really yet let myself down in any big way, part to being young and part because of that, you know, worldview.
Yeah, for sure. In your sophomore year, you said you've set some rules for yourself. Tell me about those rules. What were those 3 rules, and how has that impacted you?
Nothing good happens after 3 a.m. Go home. You know, honestly, I don't even remember. I knew that I was not acting in a way that I expected to, or that I was proud of. And then, you know, I sort of took that as a personal attack on myself. I was like, oh, everything I've done thus far to get here obviously was not working. So I just had to do a complete, like, restructuring. Some of it was, you know, as simple as not seeing those 3 a.m. people anymore, or not drinking on an empty stomach. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, go for it.
It was, just trying to behave in a way that at least allowed me to think about things, you know, sort of like survival mode. Like you eat and you go to class and you hang out with people that go to bed before 3 a.m. I'm really stuck on the 3 a.m. thing. And then I figured I could build myself back up from there if at least all my immediate needs were met.
Yeah.
I still think that's a pretty good idea, but like I said, you know, rigidity and falling into one way of being is subject to change.
Yeah, 100%. You've touched on it a little bit, but in the essay, you kind of grapple with this idea of like the transfer from childhood to adulthood. How have you grappled with that, and tell me what the change has been for you?
Oh, I'm not an adult.
Or kind of like the transfer into college. You kind of mentioned that in the essay.
Sure, yeah. I mean, in the essay, I touch on a lot about thinking that, you know, I was going to meet all my expectations and even exceed them.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened in the way I would like it to yet. I think it still could. I think, you know, being a kid is hard, and being an adult is also hard, but it's also a lot more fun. I was like one of those kids that always just wanted to grow up. And I think that's actually part of the essay a little bit. Just honoring, you know, all of that. Yeah.
For sure. And what do you want people to take away from this essay?
You know, it's good to have an idea of yourself, but don't be too hurt if that idea isn't what you thought it would be or something you wanted it to be.
Yeah, 100%. Well, if there's any post-grad plans you want to share or a place where people can follow the rest of your incredible career, please plug that.
Sure. Check out my Instagram, I guess. Hopefully I'll start writing soon for someone that calls themselves a writer. That's another idea about myself that I have to change. I will probably be bartending probably past 3 a.m., unfortunately. So,
well,
you know.
I'll be there wherever you are. I'll go.
Check me out. And, yeah, that's all for now.
Now I speak to staff photographer Noel Chaco. You wrote about kind of your journey with photography and where it's kind of taken you. So you want to just give me a quick summary of what that's about?
Yeah. So I decided to write the story about photography because of how much it means to me.
Yeah.
I picked up the camera during the pandemic, and it's become something like I'm kind of known for now.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that's what I wanted to write about as soon as, they asked about the senior essays. And I've learned so much about myself through photography, and it's given me so many opportunities to do such cool things. I would consider myself kind of like a boring person, honestly, before I started doing photography. And it kind of helped me find like my own art, my style of art. Like everybody else had like, they played an instrument or they did like painting or like clay or something. Like photography was like my thing.
Yeah.
So that was super cool for me to kind of have something, get really good at it. And like now I'm like known for it. Like I try to be humble about it, but I'm also like, I have some confidence about something now. And I'm happy to have something like that.
Yeah, 100%. Tell me a little bit about like what got you into photography and your first camera.
Yeah. So it was during the pandemic. My dad just had an old camera lying around. Like it was the camera that he used back in the day to like take all of our like family photos and just like when we went on trips and stuff.
Yeah.
So he just had that lying around. I think I was just bored.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was partially like inspired by like YouTubers and how like they were always recording stuff. So I think initially I started trying to record videos on it, like not of like vlogs or anything, but like stuff around my house.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I just started taking photos on it. I realized it was like an old Nikon.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized it wasn't good enough. Like it wasn't like, I don't know, like the photos weren't coming out really nice. So I was like, let me buy a new camera. I bought a Canon SL2, started taking photos around the house with that. Eventually got some new lenses. And then I took photos at my high school soccer game that was near my house. And like from there, like it just kind of exploded. Like I really loved those photos. And it was like a super awesome thing to, kind of be of service to somebody with this new talent that I had.
Yeah.
And then ever since then, like just been upgrading my gear and then like, getting better at it every single day, like every time that I shoot. So it's been like a really cool journey. Along the way, there was a lot of other things like TTN, events with other people, learning video as well along the way. It's been like really awesome.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like you kind of touched on it right there, but I think what I dabble in a little bit of photography, and I think what I like most about it is like, I feel like it takes me places.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about like, some of the places it's taken you, I guess.
Yeah. So some of the coolest things I got to do, or I think it was mostly freshman year. So when I was like really doing a lot of stuff here on campus, and especially at the newspaper at Temple News.
Mm-hmm.
I got to do Jack Harlow when he came to Leah Chorus for Al Chelik. That was like, it felt unreal. Like I just started taking photos like 2 years ago. Now I'm shooting Jack Harlow. Like it didn't feel real.
Yeah.
Sitting courtside or like on the court at the Leah Chorus Center, that was awesome. Going to the Big Five and sitting at the Wells Fargo on the court, taking photos of Biden and Trump and Obama. It just like it's insane. Like, and like people are always reaching out to me like, yo, that's crazy. Like some of my friends are like, yo, this is the guy who like took photos of Obama. Like, and I'm like, yeah, like it's awesome that I get to do that type of stuff. It's going to meet a lot of cool people too. Like even just like, not like celebrities, just like other people like through events and through shooting and like meeting other photographers has been really cool too. Cause it's kind of this like thing that we all share.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been awesome. Even going to the link and shooting Temple football games and being on that field, going through the tunnels, on the way to the field, just like it's a crazy experience to get all that access, especially like being such a new photographer.
Yeah, 100%. And you talk about how photography is something that comforts you. It's your shield almost, which is, it really resonated with me. So, expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think especially when I'm in like new places or people like I'm like only kind of comfortable with, like, for example, let's say I go to like my friend's birthday party and like all my friends are occupied. I kind of like get caught off guard a little bit. I'm like kind of like a little bit nervous sometimes, I would say, which like maybe outwardly people don't realize that, but like for me, it can sometimes be like that. And I think having my camera is like a way for me to like still be involved and present in the moment without having to like talk or, start a conversation or like get out of my conversational comfort zone. But I'm still active and I'm able to like do something.
Yeah.
And like, what's really fun is like afterwards, like let's say after like a birthday party or after like an event with my friends, I get to then share those photos and like keep those memories. And like people are really excited to see those moments that I captured. And it's just like super awesome. And I kind of feel like it's a way for me to always be there, be present and also like capture the moment. It's awesome for me to
100%. Yeah, you're the guy that takes the photos, and
yeah
you kind of keep those connections after.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
when you send it to them, which is awesome. So, if you had like advice for people getting into photography, what would you say to them?
It's tough. I would say first of all, like I want to say like gear doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Especially when you're starting off, just take a lot of photos.
Mm-hmm.
Try to get every opportunity that you can. Maybe do some stuff for free early on. I know I did a lot of free stuff. My prices started low.
Yeah.
I'm in like a great position to charge more now, but like I started off really low, started off just taking photos of like plants around my house, like my like grandpa's car, like whatever there is, just to learn how the camera works and just get better at it.
Right.
Slowly build your way up, try to make connections,
Mm-hmm.
try to get involved. Temple News, I got involved here. I did some internships about media, like I worked WHYY for a little bit. So just finding every opportunity, working as hard as you can. Eventually, like, you have to upgrade your gear, and that's a step, a little bit later on the road. But early on, that you can do a lot with something basic, and you can. It's a lot about learning, and you'll learn from other people. Like, I learned a lot from the people here at Temple, people from Temple News, Temple Athletics. Like, huge shout out to a lot of those people. They taught me a lot.
100%.
So yeah, just talking with people, learning. YouTube taught me an insane amount.
What are the top channels people should look out for?
This guy Paul Rutherford, he does a lot of like sports stuff. He does hockey, he does like Celtic stuff, Patriots. He's up in Boston. Zamani Feelings, he doesn't make YouTube videos, but Instagram, he's great to watch.
Sure.
Great to see like posts by him. And then Jared Poland Photos. I don't watch him as much, but like when I first started off, like learning about cameras and learning about all the settings, he was like my guy to learn everything from. So yeah, those three guys I really like. I always recommend Paul Rutherford. Anybody watching sports or doing sports, like he is like a really great resource.
It's awesome. Yeah. What do you want people to take away from this essay?
That's kind of tough. Maybe like just try new things, try to pick something up, and maybe you'll fall in love with it. For me, I really was never like the person, like I said earlier, like never the person to have like my thing.
Yeah.
And now I'm happy to have something like that. And I actually had a conversation with my friends last week about like talents and like how, it's super cool to see your friends doing amazing things, but sometimes you can feel a little discouraged when you don't have like something else. Obviously you're happy for them.
Yeah.
So I kind of think like it's important for everybody to maybe try something out and try a few different things out. Maybe at first, maybe you try to play a sport and it's not working for you, and like maybe it's just not your thing. I would say just try a bunch of things out. Get like into the nitty gritty of it a little bit. Try to do as much as you can, learn as much as you can. If it's not working out, try something new, and maybe you'll just fall in love with it, and maybe you'll become like you'll be become known for it at some point.
100%. Well, if you want to kind of flex what you got going on post grad, or plug where people can follow the rest of your career and book you to take some photos, if you're still going to do that, please do.
Of course. I'll be working post grad as a software engineer at Deloitte, but I'll still be definitely taking photos here and there. I'm excited to just do some stuff for myself too, even for like just film photography or like just fun shoots.
Yeah.
My Instagram's at Noel Chaco Photo. Definitely still be posting on there. Yeah, I'm excited to see what the future holds and like how I evolve as a photographer going forward.
Now I speak to managing editor Claire Zephyr. You wrote about kind of your tumultuous experience, I guess, of actually getting to college and finding a path. If you want to give a quick summary about that.
Sure. So I initially went to college in New York City, somewhere else, and it was kind of COVID years. I graduated in 2020, so after that first year, it was like partially online, partially there. It was just kind of a mess. So I ended up transferring to Temple after I took a gap year, and it was kind of a very last minute, like spur of the moment decision. I applied like at the end of July because it was like one of the only places left on the Common App. So I just kind of, it was a very, very spur of the moment decision. Like between applying and moving in, it was like 2 weeks. So yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, like tell me about like those first couple days. I think it's like a funny part of your essay, like 21-year-old in J&H, and you had some funny ways of describing those 18-year-olds in there. But tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely an uncomfortable moment. I think I felt a little bit like, because 3 years doesn't seem like that much, but when you're 21 and 18, I do feel like those are very different ages and like the things that you've experienced. So it was just kind of trying to find a way to like talk to people without feeling like an old creepy person, but also, you know, feeling like these are the people I'm supposed to be making friends with. Yeah, so it was a little bit difficult, and I think definitely that first semester, basically until I transferred into journalism, it was difficult to kind of find friends there. So I was pretty quiet at J&H, not much movement.
I'm sure. And I think like your essay is like a story that definitely rings true for a lot of people. Do you think like maybe they're, you know, if I were to make assumptions here, like there's kind of like a pressure in your story and a lot of other people's story of like going to college and figuring it out, and just like being miserable the whole time because you have that pressure on you, and you know you just chose something because you felt like you had to do it and you don't love it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think even just from editing everybody else's essays, I think I really noticed that like underlying theme where maybe we all feel like we all have to have it figured out, but a lot of people really were like scared and uncertain and maybe not happy until they really freed themselves of that pressure that we talk about where, you know, you feel like you have to pick something for money or, you know, maybe what your parents want, but not quite what you really enjoy. Yeah, so I think a lot of people do experience that pressure. I mean, I definitely did, and I don't think I was really happy with my college experience until I let that go. Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about what those words of encouragement from your mother and those texts meant to you.
My mom's great. She's very, very supportive of anything that I decide, and I think like that was the first time that I really like opened up to her about how I felt about it. And I think having her like approval and just her asking me like very plainly what I wanted kind of gave me the opportunity to like answer that question for myself, because I wrote in the essay that that was something I was even afraid to like confront internally. Yeah, so I think like having her support and just like getting it off my chest that I wasn't happy, and I knew that if I had kind of stuck with the path I was on, I would have been miserable, not just through college, but like for the rest of my life. So yeah, I love my mom. She's great. And that was a very, very helpful, pivotal moment in my college career for sure.
For sure. And tell me about those like first 2 journalism classes you took at Tuttleman and the feeling you got when it was like, this is it. This is what I want.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't hate my public health classes, but they're very like sterile in comparison to anything in media or Klein. So I remember my first class was Journalism and Society with Professor Larry Staines, who's quite the character. Yeah. And I remember him like dropping an F-bomb, and I was like, oh my God, this is, you know, professors can be like this, and it can be like a fun environment. And I think that was the first time, definitely one of the first moments where I felt like, maybe this was a better situation for me. And I think too, like the creativity aspect of it and like having the freedom to explore writing and like media and all those different aspects is a lot different than being in like a STEM major for sure. Yeah, and I just personally found that much more enjoyable and like felt like my place once I got there.
100%. And then, you know, making the transition to TTN, what was that like? You know, maybe your first time freelancing or something, and what is what kind of impact has TTN left on you?
Yeah, I started freelancing, I think, in like January or February. Or no, it would have been February because I became a journalism major in January. And yeah, I kind of went relatively quickly from like a first-time freelancer to the opinion editor position. It was definitely like a big jump and a very big challenge, but I honestly I say this to people all the time, like I don't know how anyone in journalism learns if they're not doing the newspaper. I think a lot of, our classes are great, but a lot of the stuff that I've really learned and experienced has come like firsthand from being in this newsroom. And I think that's most of the impact that I'll take with me is just like the things that I've learned, the challenges I've had, the stories I got to write and explore, all the sources I got to connect with. And then also, obviously the friends and all the people you've met here is probably the most defining aspect of my time here at TTN.
Yeah. Well, what do you want people to take away from this essay?
I guess if anyone's in like a similar situation, just, always being honest with yourself and freeing yourself of the outside pressures, I think is the main thing to take away from it. Because if you're not happy with those things, like internally, you're never going to really enjoy yourself as much as you should. So,
Well, if there's any post-TTN plans that you want to share or anywhere people can follow the rest of your incredible career, please plug those.
I don't have much to plug. I'm kind of a fake senior because I'm going to Rome next semester, so I'll be done in December. Yeah. So perhaps I'll have things to plug in January, but nothing major now. So I'll be gallivanting through Europe for the next few months. So yeah, excited for that.
Now I speak to feature staff writer Jaden George. Jaden wrote the most, and I don't think I'm going to offend anybody that wrote a essay.
There were some pretty dang good essays.
There were some good essays, yeah.
They were dang good.
They were dang good. But
your
yours,
essay was pretty good.
Appreciate that. Yours was the most beautiful, I think. And I think we all expected that, knowing how poetic you write.
When are we going to interview you about your essay?
I just talked to the camera. That's what I did.
Okay. Wait, so you actually did that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, you went through a lot. And just tell us a little bit about what the essay's about.
Sure. Before I do want to say, number one, I don't know if our listeners know how you start the pod or like how you start segments of it.
Yeah.
I can't stop thinking about the Jackson Dart snap count video.
Uh-huh.
Which, anyway, so, and number two, I do want to say this story isn't about me.
Right.
Me talking about myself, as crazy as it sounds after I wrote the essay, me talking about myself does no good and serves no purpose unless our readers, and there's a lot of them, unless our readers are able to take that particular situation and draw wider insights from it. So just the story, 2 years ago, I ended up spending, I would say a couple of months. I would say a couple of months. It turned out to be something more like 2 or 3, sleeping on a friend's couch. And there's a lot that plays into that. Housing costs money.
Yeah.
And so when you're thinking about how am I going to, get off my friend's couch, afford housing, that means that, there's other things that you're just not able to do. Like, buying food becomes a slightly different equation. But the piece is about the fact that when this happened, I was extremely fortunate.
Yeah.
Extremely fortunate. When you go to a college, a lot of facilities are just here for like a lot of facilities, a lot of amenities, a lot of resources are just here. It's part of your tuition. The fact that it happened in the middle of a semester meant that I was still here when it happened.
Yeah.
And that meant that like the resources and everything were on the table. The fact that there are like people at the university, I understand like the school writ large, I think oftentimes gets a bad rap for, shortcomings in the way that it handles resources.
But the people
That's
that
real.
do it are good.
And yet when you start talking about the situations of individual human beings.
Yeah.
And I think I'd name only one person in the piece because I hadn't maybe this was irresponsible. I hadn't like whipped votes and been like, hey, do you think I should write this about the time I crashed on your, on your couch for a couple years back. And so the one person I do name is Leah Paulson Dunmire, who was one of the people at Housing and Residential Life who had sort of put out feelers and made sure that I could find a place that, that I could afford, that wouldn't clean me out, and so on and so forth. And that I was, people like her and people like the folks who opened up their home in the first place. Like sleeping on a couch sounds like bleak. There's about 600,000 people in the United States in a given year experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity.
Yeah.
Most of them are not sleeping on couches necessarily. There's a certain percentage of people who are literally just on the streets, exposed to the elements. Oftentimes that's because there are like very real ailments that, because of like the structure of, the nature of healthcare, especially mental health care, means that if you're in a very specific position with that, if you have an illness where maybe one of the symptoms is, you're discouraged from seeking treatment. or if you're struggling with substance, then oftentimes you're exposed to the elements. There's people who are taking entire families and having to do some version of what I did.
Yeah.
There's people who have to sleep in their cars.
Yeah. Well,
it's many different layers of it. And again, I think like the version of it I experienced was like rough, especially at the time, but also it happened at a pretty fortuitous point.
Sure. And I think I know like the kind of, route that you take in your essay, and you talk about how, well, there's, a lot of people and groups that are going through much worse in this world than I did.
There are.
And I don't want to discredit that, but why don't you see it through a lens of, well, this is my experience, and like everybody kind of has their own definition of what a hardship is because it's your own experience, and you shouldn't discredit your own experience, I guess.
I mean,
if that makes sense at all.
So in today's edition of the Temple News, there is an insert, as I'm sure you've talked about this, from Palisades Charter High School. Which the original school burned to the literal ground a few months back, I believe over the winter, because California. And the students, every single last student in Palisades Charter High School lost the building where they would go to learn, lost the building. I'm not sure what the sports programs were like over there. They lost the building where they would go maybe to work out, to play a sport. And they started having class in a giant Sears.
Yeah.
I'm very fond of Sears.
Are you?
I'm very fond of Sears.
When was the last time you went to a Sears?
When was the last time a Sears was open?
I don't know.
I don't think there was a single Sears open in the Philadelphia area after the pandemic. But anyway, point is, displacement is, I think in some ways, a universal experience.
Sure.
We see the headlines coming out of Ukraine.
Yep.
We see the headlines coming out of Israel and Palestine. But I think we also, a pastor of mine at Easter, the Reverend John Gardner, always talks about how if you ever went to school or you were ever in any kind of social setting with other kids, there was you always knew the different kid. And they had a world in some ways of themselves and to themselves that was different from yours.
Yeah.
And so it was always kind of an awkward fit. Displacement is a universal experience. I'm Black, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be talking out of school here. You're Latino.
Yeah, I am.
None of us in the world are really home. And I think we could both get spiritual with it.
Yeah.
If you practice the Christian religion, if you or any of the monotheistic religions of, the Abrahamic faiths, Earth is not your home. You're passing through, you're coming from a different place, you're going somewhere else.
Yeah.
Even if you practice Buddhism, home is not a thing that really exists in many ways. And I could go on and on and on and on and on.
For sure. Yeah.
But the reality is, there are some experiences of displacement that are made worse, not just by an inability to access material resources because they just don't exist, and they don't extend to where you're at, either in your life or just like work-wise or what have you, but also because of political indifference. I think I talk about this in the essay.
Yeah, you do.
The first real dorm setting I moved into, I was really towards the end of the spring semester of 2023. And it was during the immediate aftermath of the Jordan Neely killing.
Yeah.
Which was, you had a guy, he was a Michael Jackson impersonator by trade in many ways, and he was living on the streets, on couches and so on, going through all the various cycles of housing insecurity in New York. And he gets on the subway, and he's in agony in a lot of ways. He begins saying he doesn't care if he lives or dies, and so on and so forth. And people on the subway are like really, really uncomfortable as a result of this, including a Marine named Daniel Penny, who puts the guy in a chokehold, which ultimately kills him. At the time, I had like a very, very sharp moral judgment about what had taken place. I had a sharp judgment of Daniel Penny.
Mm-hmm.
But as the years have gone by, what I've realized is that we as a society left a problem for Daniel Penny to solve, left a problem for Jordan Neely to solve, that in that moment, neither of them had the solution within themselves.
Yeah.
Because that's not how people work, and that's not how societies are supposed to work.
Right. You mentioned in the essay, you talk a little bit about your parents, and you talk about how you didn't have the words to enough words to no. I'm saying not enough words to kind of give them a fair. Well, I'm just saying if you'd like to expand on that.
I would.
Mm-hmm.
My mom had actually, for certain parts of that process, been in contact with Leah Paulson Dunbar.
Mm-hmm.
Again, university, housing, residential life. I'm still in contact with both my parents. You might meet them next week. I don't know. But you know, it was a situation where nobody was at their best.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's safe to say. And also the particulars of what went down. At the end of the day, the particulars of what went down don't obscure the fact that for a really long time, nearly 2 decades, the reason I had a roof and a bed to lose, and the reason why I constantly, the curiosity, the head full of whatever, the head full of stuff that
amazing head you got
results in these like 20-minute monologues and stuff. Apologies to you and Sydney who've been hearing it. It feels like for probably what feels like 2 decades by now, is because of the work that they did.
Yeah.
And so no one is perfect.
Yeah.
Gia Tolentino, I thought, like, had a really beautiful reflection about having kids and raising them. It's like doing psychedelics.
Which you wouldn't know about.
Which I wouldn't know about, exactly. None of us would know about. In some ways, the conditions have to be just right. And it's a miracle that the conditions are just right for anybody.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been around a kid under the age of 6. Sometimes they just take off running towards the street. I've never seen anything like it. And I'm like, how do any of these guys make it to 7? So having kids is really hard.
Yeah.
Raising kids is really hard. If you're struggling with your own demons, it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
And the odds that it would go right, and maybe this is why the kids these days aren't getting in relationships, and maybe this is why the kids these days aren't having children of their own. We probably looked and we did the math and said the odds that this goes well, the odds that this goes right, the odds that the human is delivered to adulthood intact, which I was an adult when all of this happened, so, am I going to be mad?
Yeah.
But the odds that the human is delivered to adulthood intact, not high.
Yeah.
These folks are beating the odds out here.
Well, whatever hardships they went through, they really raised a good kid.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I will pass those commendations along.
What do you want people to get away from or take away from this essay?
I'm trying to figure out the politically correct way to say this. Just
say it. However you feel.
I don't even know what I'm supposed to take away from this essay in some ways. I want you to stop looking at homeless people on the street like, you know, I'm trying to figure out how to put this. Because the temptation never, I don't think, goes away from any of us to ignore what other people are struggling with. I'm not your priest. I'm not your pastor. I'm not your imam. I'm not your rabbi. I'm not your, actually, okay, a lot of different religions have priests. I'm not your counselor. I'm not your therapist. I'm not your mom. And so I'm not going to ask you to like go on some 10-step process that's going to cause you to think differently about, you know, what people are struggling with out in the world. I am going to ask you, there's a town in New Jersey where I believe it's John Bon Jovi has opened up a restaurant where people pay what they wish. And so the people who can help out the people who can't.
Yeah.
And the government in that town wants John Bon Jovi to close his restaurant because they say it's a nuisance. I want you to put some respect on the names of guys like John Bon Jovi. I want you to put some I want you to put some respect on the people that are working daily on a regular basis. I'm not saying it's perfect. There are real quality of life concerns. I think anytime you begin having conversations about homelessness, especially with regards to when there's you know, mental maladies at play that people are working through. But I would say the one thing I would want people to take away from this is a respect for the folks who have decided to wade into those waters. And I'd be remiss, obviously, not to mention the fact that Sede Vacante, Pope Francis, who passed away a little over a week ago, constantly urged people to remember those who are impoverished, remember those who are displaced, remember those whose lives have been made consistently and intractably worse by circumstances beyond their control.
Yeah, well, Jaden, it's been 4 years we've been working together. 2 literally side by side, 2 of those years side by side at WHIP.
Pablo, a member of the department we were in at WHIP is running this newspaper.
Yeah,
I feel like
next year,
I feel like Rip Van Winkle. I'm like, maybe we were just asleep. Like,
yeah, you
that's
helped
incredible.
Make that happen.
Yeah. Well, hold on.
Yes. Well, Jaden, this is what I want to say. Don't act humble here, but you went through a lot, and every day.
Well,
no, let me now.
No.
Now I get the floor. Now I get to talk good about you. You went through so much, and every day, I'm telling you, every day you came in ready to work and grinded and worked harder than me, and you. I'm telling you right now, you're so smart. You have so much ahead of you. It's insane.
Thank you. It means a lot. It means a lot hearing that from you.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you know how, I hate to turn this into a work thing, but you, number one, I think you know how like news operated for a long time.
Yeah.
And we had first got there at WHIP, where oftentimes it did seem like the question was, what is this going to be this year? Hard reset every year. It was a hard reset when we did it. It was a hard reset, I think, when Sydney took it over this year.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, the amount of stuff we did, both when it was you and Oliver, and then when it was you and me, I have to chalk it up to you as well, because of what you were able to do organizationally. The amount of leeway and the amount of creativity that you brought to the table as well.
Appreciate that.
And beyond the operational, I think there's probably not a person in this newsroom, and probably not a person inclined, who doesn't want to be like you in some way. because there have been times when I actually haven't been at my best. There have been times when I think you have pulled us in a direction of openness and pulled us in a direction of graciousness. And I will always appreciate that too.
I appreciate that, man. Well, I think a part of me will always miss, even though I never understood them, the references to 60s media and Bible verses and evangelical preachers, but I will be following the rest of your career. And where, if you'd like to plug it, can these great people follow the rest of your career?
I can't believe I'm now one of those guys who announces things on podcasts. You might see a byline or two in the Philadelphia Inquirer over the summer at least.
And they can find that on LinkedIn, X.
I'm going to have to write a LinkedIn blast. So, yeah.
Jaden George on LinkedIn. Follow him because he's going places. Now I speak to data editor Ava Fitzgerald. You wrote a really great essay about kind of all the student orgs you've been part of, focusing more on period. So, yeah, tell me a little bit about it. What was it all about?
Well, thank you. So for the past 2 years, I've been the project manager for Period. So it's an e-board position. And Period's mission, so it's a chapter of a larger organization, nonprofit. There's student chapters at a lot of different campuses, but Temple has its own. And its mission is to provide service, education, and advocacy to help alleviate or end period poverty as we know it. I can explain more about that. I feel like a lot of people aren't familiar with that topic. So just because it is very it's just not spoken about because the topic of periods for so long were kind of demonized or just was like hush hush
taboo kind of.
Yeah, and just about women's bodies as well. So even in schools, when I was in middle school or high school, it's just you wouldn't even bring your period product out when you had to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So what we do at Period is we distribute period products to different bathrooms across Temple's campus. That was my role basically. And I organized that, and we did 5 different bathrooms. Mazur, Ritter, Pearson Star, and Weiss Halls, because we got approved through those.
Gotcha.
So we could give out free period products because a lot of college students experience period poverty. They can't afford the funds for period products, and they are getting more expensive in this economy, especially with tariffs. I don't know what that's going to look like, but so yeah, that's what we're trying to do, and we've been really successful these past 2 years. In the past year, we've distributed more than 5,000 products.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm really proud of the work we've done.
What drew you initially to Period?
So 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago, I was a sophomore, and I was going to some of these bathrooms, and at the time, period bins were in Charles' bathroom, but it wasn't technically approved at that time. So they kept getting stolen or thrown out by Temple's administration. Okay. So or just the workers there. And but at the time I didn't know that. And all I knew was that they were in those bathrooms that I would go to, and I thought I really admired their work. Even before that, it didn't really click that this was something that we needed.
Yeah.
When I first got to Temple, when I was 18 and just out of high school, you don't really think about money right away, about spending and the cost and everything. But over time, it just started piling up, those costs. And so yeah, I just really admired the work they did. And then one day, there was this collaboration with I'm sorry, I'm misremembering it. So one day, my friend was like, let's just try a new club out because we don't really know, we just don't really enjoy the clubs that we've been a part of. We want to make more friends. As a sophomore, it's you try a bunch of different things out, and some things just don't fit and work, which is okay. So yeah, we just kept trying, and we came across this club, Period, and we went to this meeting, and it was like one of the end of the year meetings too.
Mhm.
So like I don't even know if we should have been there. It was like a general body meeting, but it's like it was just funny because it was like a short, quick meeting. But
Yeah.
immediately when we got there, they're like, "Oh, we have leftovers from the bake sale. Like, have some of this." And it was very welcoming. It was very warm and friendly. And they were presenting these slides to like members, and they were like, "Oh, like there's our e-board members are getting these cords for graduation." And I just remember sitting there thinking like, "Oh, I want to be that person. I want to have cords when I graduate. I want to like leave a mark on Temple and the people here in the community." I want to do something within the next 2 years I have, because it's gone by already quick for the first 2.
Yeah.
So I spoke with the people. I just went up to them after the meeting and I was like, "Hey, I'm really interested in your club. Like, are there any opportunities?" And they said there was things coming up at the end, because I just missed so much out on like my sophomore year. So there was also another collaboration. I went to this next meeting. It was a collaboration with the Office of Sustainability.
Yep.
And that really piqued my interest, because like I'm an environmental studies major.
Mhm.
And so I then saw that there's also this overlap, this intersection with like period poverty and the environment, which I really liked. And so when I applied to the project manager role, I really spoke on that. I spoke on why I wanted to make like proactive change on campus, and that I wanted to like, in my role, I would really focus on selecting sustainable products.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the interview that like wasn't really an interview. Like they just accept you on the spot because of the things you said.
So it was an application, but it was like a lot of short answer responses, like
Gotcha.
1 or 2 paragraphs each. So then I really like went all out for that, because I was really passionate at the time. It's like, it makes it so much easier. I mean, I've stared at applications before where it's like, tell us about why you want to join our company, and I don't really know much about the company, but it's like I have to, pull some.
You have to BS it a little bit.
I have to like somehow make it all fit together and like make something work. But this just came so easy to me, so I'm really glad they kind of saw my words, and were like, "Okay, you're the right fit for the job," basically.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, tell me a little bit about like the people you've met along the way and how they've helped you and the times you've had with them.
So when I first joined Period, like I didn't know anyone.
Yeah.
A lot of the people there are also like younger than me. Like they're going to be seniors next year. So like they're like a year younger. So at the time they were just sophomores. And there was also a lot of like upperclassmen too, like people above me. So I didn't really connect with anyone at first, actually, which is interesting, because it's like we all have the same goal and we are all passionate about the same thing. But I was a little shy too, but also I just thought, oh, I'm here to do my work, and then I go, and then I have my own friends, right? But I just started like at these meetings, I was giving feedback, and I was sitting next to this girl in particular who would not like, she just kept making funny jokes about things. I feel like we all have like that one friend like that can't take anything seriously.
Right.
And like at the time, like that's what those meetings were. They were just supposed to be like, it kind of felt like a corporate meeting. I mean, we were getting stuff done and like doing progress reports, but like it's nice to have people there on the team that really I mean, take it seriously, but make things more lighthearted than they are.
100%.
Like, so she just would not shut up, and I mean that in the best way. Like she always had something to say, serious or not. Like she is one of the funniest people I know, and her name is Amelia. And then we just started talking after these meetings, and I realized we had so much in common. So she really helped me get out of my shell, because I would talk to her, and she was friends with other people on the e-board, because they all kind of were freshmen. And when you're like a freshman, I guess like you know every other freshman when you get to Temple. So they all knew each other, and over time I became friends with them. And then my other friend, so the treasurer, Connor, he only guy on the e-board, first guy on the e-board. I don't know if he'll be the last, but I don't think there's any other guy that is in the upcoming e-board, because sadly he's leaving to do other things. But he really like, it was just astonishing to see that a guy cared about the cause.
Yeah.
Because especially like a Fox business bro who like
It's Jaden laughing in the background.
So what was I saying?
Talking about Connor and like how like he was part of it.
But like he at the time was like his role literally was recruiter for the professional sales organization, so it's like an SBO in Fox, and he would just like start like saying during meetings or like after meetings like, hey guys, like you're gonna join my organization, right? And we're like, what are you talking about, Connor? Like we're obviously like not even in Fox, like why do you want us there? Are your like numbers that low? Like you're that desperate? But he just kept bringing it up, and then he was very persuasive because he was like, oh, you'll learn like these skills, and you'll meet with professionals, and there's free pizza. And then I was like, oh, free pizza, like I'm there. So then Amelia and I would go to these meetings. It was like 12 at noon every Wednesday and Friday of that semester, and we would get free pizza because it was very convenient timing, like lunch, like, and I'm a college student, I don't want to pay for food,
right?
So and over time we just kind of like really enjoyed it there. Like I learned a lot, like from people. We had speakers come in, and I learned a lot about, even though like I don't want to do sales, I learned that too, but like I loved what they talked about, and like I realized, oh, like I need to step into the real world after this. Like I need to know these things. So it was pretty cool. And I like even did their sales competition, and Connor says I almost got in the top 5. He said I was 6, but I don't know if I should believe him. He used that as like a tactic to recruit me again. And I was like, no, I can't do that again. But I really did enjoy my time there. So yeah.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, what do you want people to take away from this essay?
I think what I want them to take away is that step out of your comfort zone, because I feel like I stuttered there. Oops. But what I want them to take away is for them to step out of their comfort zone, because when you first get to Temple, you'll go to the club or Temple Fest.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on, and you'll probably sign up for a lot of things that you'll never go to, but maybe you're scared to even show up to them in the first place. But I think it's really important to like try new things and meet new people and speak up and see if you have anything in common, because you can be sitting next to someone the entire time and not even realize that you guys are so aligned and really could be like good friends. And I made a lot of good friends along the way. I've joined different things, many different organizations. I've seen people come and go, but there are friendships that will truly last even after I graduate.
100%. Well, if there's any post-grad plans you want to share with the people, or anywhere where they can follow your incredible career that you will have, please plug that.
Yeah. You can find me on LinkedIn, Ava Fitzgerald. But also I'm excited to announce that I just found this out yesterday, that I'm going to be doing a little summer job with the Office of Community Impact and Civic Engagement at Temple.
Hell yeah.
Doing data stuff and sort of like storytelling for them. So similar to what I've kind of been doing.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to kind of see where that goes and what that opportunity brings.
For sure. Great. Congrats. Thank you to our staff, Sam, Devik, Kara, McKaylee, Kaisa, Lindsay, Mike, Kylie, Noel, Claire, Jaden, and Ava for joining me on this episode. And make sure to check out all their work on the Temple News website. I'm Pablo Rocco, podcast editor for the Temple News, and this is Reprint.